everyone, this is Laura from the Rising Sun Branch Library, and I'm coming to you from my kitchen, and I thought we would make some chocolate chip cookies. Now, the Rising Sun Branch is known for their baking, whether it's from our patrons who bring us wonderful baked goods, or from my coworkers and I who love to bake and bring them to share. So I thought it would be wonderful if I made the cookies that all my coworkers love for me to bring into work. So for the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the dry ingredients for the cookies. So here are my dry ingredients. It's 2 2/3 cup of flour, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder, and 1 teaspoon of salt. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with my small bowl. And I have 2 bowls, one's big and one's small. And I'm just gonna put some flour into it. So remember, it's 2 2/3 cup. So I'm gonna take spoonfuls and I'm just going to spoon them into my 1 cup. And then I'm gonna see if it's overflowing, and I'm going to tap it a little bit. And then I'm gonna take the flat end of my knife and I'm just going to shake off the top. All right, and then I'm gonna put it in my small bowl. And then I'm gonna get another cup. And I'm gonna do the same thing. Overflowing it, tapping it a little bit, and then shaking it off. And then I'm gonna get my 2 2/3 cup. And I'm going to do the same thing. Okay. Alrighty. Tapping it a little and shaking it off. Okay. I'm going to close up my flour. I'm putting it over here. Okay. The next is my baking soda. So I'm going to take a teaspoon of baking soda, and it's a little wet because I guess one of my children was baking earlier. And I'm going to take it, and you notice it's kind of overflowing, and then I'm going to shake it off the top, like just shake it off the top so that it's flat, and then I'm going to put it in, and that's my baking soda. And then the last is I need a 1/3 cup, teaspoon of baking powder. So I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to overload it, but then I'm going to shake it off, or I'm going to push it off on the top and then put that in. Okay? And the last of my dry ingredients is my salt. And I'm going to need my teaspoon for that. I guess I should have put them out, but I forgot. Oh wait, I have it here. And I'm going to put it in. And again, same thing. I want it to be flat. So this time I kind of shake it off to the side and I eyeball it. And then I put it in. Okay? And then I'm just going to kind of mix it a little bit. And then put it off to the side. My next is my wet ingredients. And I put wet in parentheses because obviously not all the ingredients are wet. But what we're gonna start with is gonna be two sticks of butter. 2 sticks of butter. 1 cup of brown sugar. 3/4 cup of sugar, 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla, and 2 eggs. And then the last will be the chocolate chips. But I just put them on here because that's a later ingredient, but since it's a separate ingredient, I figured I'd put it in the second half, okay? So those are our ingredients. Now I have 2 ways of doing my butter. The first way is you can soften the butter, which means you can leave it out for an hour or so to soften to room temperature, or you can melt it. I thought we would do the melting because it's a little bit easier for children. They can mix the cookies a little bit better, so I thought we would do the melting one. So what I'm gonna do is I melted my 2 sticks of butter, and I'm just gonna put it in, and I just scrape all the butter out of the bowl. Okay, and put it in my sink. And then I'm going to get my brown sugar. And again, it's 1 cup of brown sugar and it's packed. So what you're gonna do is you're going to take it and you kind of see it's overflowing, and then you're gonna push it down. And if it's too much, you can wipe off the top. But as you see, it's packed in there. Okay. And I somehow have a little bit on my hands. So I'm gonna wash that off. And I forgot to mention this earlier, but before you're baking, you should always wash your hands thoroughly before you start, which I had done before I put the video on. All right. The next is we're gonna get our sugar. And our sugar is gonna be 3/4 cup of sugar. And again, same thing, you're gonna flatten it. So I just shake it off. And we're gonna pour it in. And the difference between sugar and flour, why I spoon it in as opposed to just scooping it up, is flour has a lot of air in it and you wanna keep that air in. So that's why I kind of scoop it up and then just tap it a little bit, whereas sugar doesn't really have a lot of air flowing through it, so you can just kind of scoop it and pour it in. All right, the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna get our vanilla. And I have my teaspoon. Actually, before we do that, we should probably stir it, right? So I'm gonna mix this all together. And that's the beauty of it, is you can kind of see it's really easy. It's really easy to mix when the ingredients have been melted. And once the sugar and the butter has been mixed together, you can then add your vanilla. So we're gonna do 1 teaspoon. And then we're gonna do 1/2 teaspoon. Okay. And you're gonna mix that together a little bit. And then I'm gonna get my eggs. So we're gonna take 2 eggs. And they're gonna be 2 large eggs, which is usually the standard for most baking. And we're gonna put 1 in. And we're gonna put another one in. Okay, and I'm gonna wash my hands because I got a little egg on them. All right, and then we're gonna mix them all up as well. And we're just gonna mix them until they're all mixed up together, incorporated, so that you can't tell anything is different. Okay. And again, this makes it a lot easier. When you melt butter, it just makes it easier. If you soften it, it's just a little bit harder for kids. A lot of times you have to use a stand mixer or a hand mixer. I thought this would be a little bit easier for them. Okay. Now that you've done that and it's all mixed together, we can start adding the dry ingredients. So we're just going to add a little bit at a time, and you're gonna mix it. And then you're gonna mix some more. get some on your counter, but that's okay because kids like to mix really fast anyway. And then we're gonna finish it off and just put the rest in. And finish mixing slowly because now there's a lot of flour in there. Now again, like I said earlier, you can still use a hand mixer. If you have one, but not everybody has a hand mixer anyway. So I figured this would be a good way for everybody to do it together. All right, so now we have it all mixed together. And then of course the last ingredients is gonna be our chocolate chips, and it's gonna be 2 cups of chocolate chips. That's 1 cup. And 2 cups. All right. And then again, you're just gonna mix them all in there. Mix it until it's all incorporated. All right, so now we have this lovely dough to start making our cookies. Now the difference between when we soften butter and we melt it, obviously, is it's easier to stir, but also because of that, it's a lot softer. And because it's a lot softer, if we were to put it into the oven right now, it would flatten a lot. And then they wouldn't be as good cookies because they're just really flat cookies. So because we decided to melt it, what we're gonna do is we're gonna freeze the dough. Now, some people just take this, they put it in the fridge for a while, it hardens up, and then they start scooping it. But for me, once it's hardened, it's so hard that it's really hard to scoop it. So what I do is I put them on cookie trays and I line them up, and then I just put them in the refrigerator or the freezer for a few hours. And then when it's time, I can take them out and I can cook them then. The great thing about this also is that means that if you wanted to only make 5 cookies at a time, you could make 5 cookies at a time, or you can make all of the cookies at a time. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you what I do, and then we'll put them in the freezer, and then later on we'll cook them. Now I have these special scoopers that I use for my cookies. I have one that is for small cookies and one for big cookies, so you can kind of see the sizes. But most people don't have those. And when I was younger and I made cookies all the time when I was a kid, I just used a spoon. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna take a spoon, and depending on how big you want your cookie is how big you're going to make the scoop. So obviously this is kind of like a medium-sized cookie, so you can make it like that. The big thing is you kind of have to make them all the same size, because when you're cooking them, some will cook faster than the others, so you try to make them all the same size. Okay, so we have this one, right? So you can make all the cookies about the same size, and you're just going to put them on the tray and kind of put them together a little bit. And once you have all of them on the tray, like you see how close they are? I put them all together close. I'm gonna do all of these, and then I'm just gonna put them in the freezer. Okay, and I'll be back in a little bit, and then we'll bake the cookies. Hi everybody, I'm back, and we are ready to start cooking our the cookies. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna get our cookie trays, and it's just a plain old cookie tray. And you can do 2 things. I like to use parchment paper. So we're gonna put some parchment paper here. Or if you don't have any parchment paper, that's fine too. You can just spray the cookie sheet with cooking spray. And that way you have everything you need. I just like it easier that way. I don't have to clean the dishes as much. They're easier to clean. And so I use the parchment paper. So the first thing you're gonna do is I decided to make the bigger cookies so you can kind of see the size of my cookies. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put them eight total on my big cookie sheet. And they're gonna be 2 to 3 inches apart. So it'll be about 8 cookies. If you were making them smaller, you could probably fit about 12 on this size sheet, but it depends on what size your cookie sheet is. And while I'm doing this, I've already preheated my oven at 375. And so that way you are all ready to start cooking your cookies. So I have these, so I'm gonna put them in the oven. And because they're bigger cookies, it's gonna take about 11 to 12 minutes to cook. And what I usually do is I will cook them for about half the time. So for 11 to 12 minutes, I usually do 5 minutes for the first side. And then I put them in, and then I turn them around and I do an additional 6 minutes. That way it's 11. And once that's done, I'll open up the oven again, and then I check it even more and see if it's done. Because if it looks a little raw or it looks a little uncooked, what I'll do is I cook it another minute. And what I'll do is I'll keep cooking it 1 minute at a time because I don't want them to burn. And I know some people put like a set time, but you just never know with different sets of cookies. Like some cookies might be bigger or smaller. So if you're doing a smaller set, then you would want to start at 8 minutes. So you would do 4 minutes and then turn the pan and do another 4 minutes. And then you would add 1 minute per time just to make sure that they are done completely. So I'm going to take these 8 cookies, as you can see, and I'm going to put them in the oven. Now these have been frozen, so that's why they take a little bit longer too. So we're going to put them in the oven. And I'm going to set it for 5 minutes, or yes, 5 minutes. All right, so I put it in for 5 minutes. And for my big cookies, it makes about 24 cookies. And if it was a smaller batch, it would take about 40 to 48 cookies. Depending on how big your cookies are, is how many cookies you're gonna get. So before I started the video up again, I did make one batch. That way I can just pull it out and you can kind of see what they look like. So these are my finished cookies. And they just came out of the oven. So that's why I have my little hot pad. And I'm going to take them, and I have a little cookie tray that I put on, that way they can cool down. But if you don't have them, you can just leave them on the cookie sheet and just leave them until they cool off. All right. So I'm going to put them on our tray so that they can cool down for a little bit. And then again, that was about 8 cookies. And because I have one more tray left, I'm going to take my additional frozen ones that I have here, and I'm going to put them on the last sheet. So it made about 3 sheets of cookies. And that is it. That is all that we have. And so obviously we have my cookie that I just took out of the oven. And it's all gooey. And I'm gonna take a little bite because it looks so good. So good. And of course my children will inhale these completely. And they might be gone by tomorrow night. So I hope you have a good time baking cookies. and I will see you next time. Have a good day.